Well, hey there everyone. This is going to be a slightly different video because, well, the world is heavy and I need something silly to do this week that isn't quite so hands-on. So, if it's good enough for Hank Green, then it's good enough for me. Because yes, recently I did see Hank do a video all about tier listing random sci-fi terms.
Words for things that don't exist, by people writing science fiction.
Which honestly tickled me pink and had me think, you know, there's a lot of funny words in vintage sewing world and regular sewing world. So let's give them some rankings. But of course I am just a little too off to keep the normal terms. So let me go ahead and tell you what our categories are going to be today. On the bottom, instead of F tier, we are going to go with that actually makes sense. Because you see, a lot of terms in vintage, while they are a little cuckoo-ca-choo, sometimes they actually make sense weirdly. Next up is going to be, instead of D tier, I guess, where they will sort of kind of make sense, but not really. And at C level, we are going with that tracks. Because, well, it might be weird, but it does kind of align even though it doesn't 100% travel on to modern day English. Instead of B tier, we're gonna go with they named it what? Because yes, there are those moments where you just kind of cock your head to the side and you're just like, I don't understand, but I guess. Instead of the top tier, which is actually S, which means everything else was wrong, chaos, it's what I do here. So I guess that's normal. And instead of the top tier, we're gonna go with what in the Lucy in the sky with diamonds is that? Because those are going to be the ones that truly make no sense, but that is just what they are. But did you know that there is a better feeling than renaming all of those categories? And no, it isn't the feeling of eating delicious dark chocolate. It's getting a good night's sleep on a comfy mattress, like the ones from our sponsor of today's video, NOLA Mattress. And in case you haven't heard of NOLA Mattress, they are an award-winning mattress brand known for its cooling technology, exceptional pressure relief, and long-lasting durability. And the best part is it's shipped directly to your home for free and is super easy to set up. It's as simple as open up the box, release it from the prison winch that was shipped in the box, also known as the plastic. Let the mattress rise like the glorious cozy thing that it is, and then get some good sleep on it. And now here's the thing. Our mattress is the glorious Evolution Comfort Plus because I and my husband obviously live in slightly larger bodies, which means that our mattress has to do the work of making sure that we don't sink to the box springs. And these mattresses do it so well. Now, we have had this mattress since May of 2025. And honestly, I can't imagine going back to another mattress because not only is it super cozy at night, as a side sleeper even, because that's what I am. However, this allows me to sleep comfortably on my side without the standard pains of waking up and your hand being numb. Oh no, I shouldn't have done that. And in case you were wondering, yes indeed, it is also Junior and Sniftigator approved. So you loved a mattress, don't you, Bub-Bubs? And all of NOLA's mattresses include a limited lifetime warranty. They have financing options as well as flexible payment plans. And if for some reason you are unsure if you will enjoy your mattress, they do have a 120-night sleep trial so that you can rest easy knowing that if it doesn't work for you, there is an option to return it. And I love my NOLA mattress, and I think you will too. So if you want to join me in the NOLA mattress family, make sure that you are scanning the QR code here or clicking the link down below in my description and using my code StephanieCanada to get $50 off of your next mattress. And yes, that discount is good on top of any other sale that they're currently running. Psst, if you want to help out the channel a little bit more, there's an optional post-purchase survey where you can mention my channel and let them know that you got the scoop from Stephanie Canada. And thank you to NOLA for sponsoring today's video. But now, let's go ahead and head back over to go put some of these words into those categories. And so what I have done is I have picked 25 of my favorite vintage words, and also all the members of this channel certainly helped that both on Patreon and here on YouTube. So if you want to help decide the things that I tier list occasionally, you can come join us on either platform. But let's get right on into this, because honestly, we're starting with a strong one: feed dogs. And feed dogs, while they are a little odd, listen, anything with a dog name in that, and it feeds the fabric, so it should be like feed teeth, I guess technically, because it reminds me of the teeth of a dog, but that's not what it is. So we'll go with I guess, because it's like borderline, makes sense, but not 100%. Next up, we have one of my absolute favorites, shirring. Shirring is one of those things where it's like a whole bunch of gathers that are pulled really tightly. They're usually pulled like right at the shoulder. It's where I usually see it in the vintage patterns. But the word itself truly makes no sense. Nowhere in this, like, I think ruffle, I think gather, I don't think shirring. So I think that clocks right up with they named it what? Because it isn't quite like cuckoo-cachoo crazy. Or is it? Does it need to go in What in the Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds? No, I think it needs to stay in They Named It What now. Next up, there were a couple like fashion terms, but especially ones that were very vintage. My favorite one being overblouse, because really it's just a fancier blouse that's slightly longer and more fitted, especially along the bottom. And while this specific term has fallen out of fashion, the style of blouse is still around. Back when we were in the 90s, it was 3 tank tops. You pick as to which one was the overblouse. I think this one actually falls right into that actually makes sense, even though the term isn't used anymore. Oh boy, next up is placket. Not jacket, no. Placket. This is a wild little thing that you usually see in such installations as like a side zipper or a side snap, depending on how old the garment is. The one that I found in my 1942 vintage sewing book was an underwear placket, because you used to just make your underwear, sometimes, not all the time, but a lot of the times. And so this was a way in which to keep that flap without having like a fly in a zipper situation. So does it make sense? No. So I think this, it does not track. No, it does not. I think it's also going to be in the They Named It What Now? And now moving on to another classic, welt pocket. Now these are still around, so this is not a completely vintage term, but I just enjoy the idea that when I think of welt outside of the context of pockets, I think of the giant thing that you get when you play paintball and someone's standing too close to you when they shoot you, and it's left on your body. Not saying that ever happened, but like the idea of that being a welt and then a welt pocket, that actually the welt pocket is more annoying to install than the other pockets because it actually lays smoothly flat with the garment most times, is a choice. So, I'm gonna go with I guess, because a welt and a welt pocket are so varyingly different for me that I feel like that's where that goes. And now we have a thing that I didn't even know had a name until yesterday. Actually, in the year of our Lord 2026 is when I learned that this little thing that I've seen so many times has a name. And no, I'm not talking about the tomato. I'm talking about the little strawberry thing on the side. Apparently, that's called an emery bag. Why is it called an emery bag? Great question! Let's go ask the interwebs. We're getting lots of bug things. Did I spell that wrong? I bet I did. Emery bag sewing. Let's try that one instead. Get out of here, AI. Like, I know it's used to keep the needle sharp. That's what I know. It's supposed to be filled with like sawdust or something. There's supposed to be something in there that when you stick in the hand needles, it actually gives them a little sharpening, cleans up any of the burrs. But, okay, maybe this? This is a blog from Anna Warden, done in 2016, so definitely no AI. Yeah, special sandwich help keep the, I knew that. So is it the sand? Oh, we're referencing Wikipedia, okay. Oh, the emery is the type of rock? Oh, well that makes more sense. Corundite, large granular rock used to make an abrasive powder, which would then take the burrs off of your hand needle. Well, that makes sense. Okay, well now it at least makes sense. Great. I do feel actually better knowing that. Now, because we have that information, I think this needs to slap perfectly under that tracks, because I had no idea what emery was before this, but now that it makes sense. Like, that absolutely makes sense. But it is a weird term when you don't know what the rock is. Next up, Pink seams, or pinking a seam. No, not the color, and definitely not Kenough. It's a type of scissor. These, the orange ones you always see me using as a microphone, it's these because they have these little zigzag teeth and you cut along the fabric because this is the cheap and easy and lazy person's way on a tight knit fabric to finish your seams. And that's how I choose to do most of mine because I truly can't be bothered. Which means that actually makes sense. So like, even if you don't know the name of it, like once you learn the name, it actually truly makes sense and it isn't that weird. Now we have toile. Here's the funny thing about toile. Toile in sewing is actually two separate things. One is a type of fabric that's like usually white with blue. It looks like it could be like on a piece of china, but it's not, it's on fabric. It's usually like very calming scenes, hills, trees, occasionally hunting toiles. And then there's the kind where you usually cut up a sheet or a piece of muslin and use it as a practice garment. So like, odd word with two very different meanings. So this one, I think it goes, I guess, because like, I get it. It's a name of a fabric. That's not really, a lot of fabric names are weird. We could do a whole other one of these on just weird fabric names. But like a toile as a mock-up, when we also call it a mock-up nowadays, yeah, it's just going in, I guess. Now this one, I'm gonna remind you, I pulled most of these from my either 1941 or 1942 book right here that I sell the whole PDF of if you would like a vintage sewing book to go along with your makes of the 1940s, and you can usually get some 30s terms in there too. So this is a very, very specific vintage term, and by term, I mean as best definition as they could give it, mannish cuff. And I get it, because in the 40s this was still early in the rationing efforts, as the attack on Pearl Harbor had only just happened on December 7th, 1941. So the ramp up to engage women in the workforce and the make do and men mindset had only really just begun. So I think just knowing the era this came from, that tracks. Like, it does make sense for the era, because it is a cuff, so like, obviously we know what a cuff is. It's right here, it's this part of the sleeve. Usually it's tight and annoying and I hate them. But a mannish cuff is quite wild to me, because it's in regards to a garment that was typically labeled in the time as Mrs. or women's. It's a choice. Now, listen, I am not an etymologist, not an entomologist, not a bug person, which is what I did on that search by accident, an etymologist. I do not research the history of a name to see whence it came from. Even though that stuff does interest me, I don't have the time usually. But today, I've got the time. So we are once again going to go into the world of the search, because we're going to see if soutache, our next word, has any type of, word breakdown. And yes, friends, I am going to go to Wikipedia, so you're welcome for that. Also known as a Russia braid, is a narrow, flat, decorative braid, a type of galloon. What is that? Heavily decorated braided ribbon. Very royal, very pouncy, very flouncy, very regal. I don't know what I'm doing. It was a trim for the aristocracy, which does make sense. Do we have where the name came from? No. Soutache began to be found on ready-wear clothes. An attachment as an underbraider. I feel like there needs to be some cosplayer that puts undertaker and underbraider and smashes them together with like a WWE, but is on all braids. That would be hilarious. You may take that idea and run with it. Go for it. Don't even gotta credit me. So no, I don't see from whence the name came other than the French, which is fine, but it is one of those that if you don't know what soutache is, it can be confusing as like what you're seeing on these garments from the 30s and 40s, which is when it would have been readily available after the Industrial Revolution. Hey, look at that. So I think just because it comes from a language that is not our own, we're gonna go with that actually makes sense because it came from the French. We're not here to like make fun of the other languages out there. It just like, that clearly had a French etymology. I hope I'm saying that right, because I am not sure. Next up, we have surplice. Surplice bodices are one of my favorites. I love a surplice blouse. One, I love the patterns. because they usually sell quite well because it's not a style that's super readily available in nicer silhouettes. And 2, I think they just look good, period. And they're also super easy if you already have a surplice to adjust it slightly to turn it into a wrap dress. 10 out of 10 for the surplice. However, the word is weird. And if you don't know that that's what that type of bodice is, which I didn't for a long time until I saw it on enough sewing patterns to go, oh, this is probably just a word that's used. So that one, I think, because I truly don't know what that came from, I'm gonna go with they named it what? Because it's a weird name, y'all. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, that's a totally normal term. No, it's not. Because like crossover front is what I see a lot of people who don't know the word call it. And honestly, if you don't know what the word is and you're looking for that style, you're probably gonna call it something similar, like a crossover front. The word is a little weird. And now, to go with shirring from before, we now have its friend, ruching, which is basically just a looser version of shirring, let's be real. But it's more than gathering because there's more threads involved. So, ruche is not anywhere close to gather, is not anywhere close to... Yeah, no, I think it also has to go with they named it what? Because it's just weird. It's just out there. Heidi ho, neighbor. Just coming in here to tell you that I will also be teaching at the very first Fiber Fabric Festival in Chicago, Illinois, April 30th and May 1st. I will list my classes right here and put the link down in the description. So if you want to come learn from me on any of these courses, make sure you go check it out now because it is coming up soon. Hope to see you in Chicago. Okay, back to the video. And now we have one of my absolute least favorite things to install, but they always look good and it's annoying. Godets. A godet, yeah. It's a piece of fabric that either goes into a curved setting or a pointed setting, and it adds usually either contrast or more flare. It's larger than the other pieces, so you have more flare and more oomph behind the garment. This has got to be truly one of the first What in the Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Who named this? What is happening? Actually, yeah, no, let's do this. All right, Wikipedia, what you got? Godet. A type of cognac, not what we're going for here. Yes, sewing, thank you so much. Extra piece of fabric in the shape of a circular section, not always true, which is set into a garment or dress. Oxford English Dictionary, great. 1942 power machine sewing. Why do I want to read just based on the title? So yeah, it seems like an English word, therefore I don't mind making fun of it. Who named this? Why did it, what were we doing? What precluded this choice? Now there are 2 here that are really funny and really similar. The first one we're going to go with is pile fabric. And no, I do not mean the pile that you can absolutely see under my desk. That's not what this is. Pile fabric is like a velvet, when the velvet has a pile, which is a fiber that sticks up, okay? So that fiber that sticks up and usually, sometimes, is very soft, and it usually like one direction feels really good and the other direction feels really hateful. That's usually a pile fabric. So like corduroy, velvets, peach skin, all of those have a pile of some kind and of some height. However, just because I think of it as like the pile of fabric on the floor and then there's a pile of stuff on the fabric, I'm gonna go with that tracks. And honestly, it's because I'm not new to this, I'm true to this. I do have piles of fabric everywhere. That's neither here nor there. But the other one that goes with it is a nap fabric or napped fabric. This is what we were talking about earlier. When the fabric has a pile, it also has a nap, which usually means that the fabric in one direction runs like smoothly or feels good, or the fabric, like those glitter pillows. When you run your hand over it one way, it looks one color, and it runs it the other way, it's the other color, except usually in fabric, when you go the opposite direction, it's a hateful texture. Oh my God. And so napped fabric, or nap fabric, is basically telling you that you need to pay way more attention to how you are sewing that. So like if you are concerned you have a napped fabric, run your hand over it from like, if the selve edge is here and the selve edge is here, right? Which are the ends of it. And you run your hand this way. One way will feel good, the other way will feel hateful. Congratulations, friend, you have a napped fabric and you need to cut this carefully with the nap going the same direction on all your pattern pieces. Otherwise, like if you're making a blouse with a yoke up here, and the blouse runs down so it feels good, and the yoke accidentally runs up and feels hateful, it will also potentially look like it's a different color. I also found out that fleece has a nap during my coat project. Didn't know that either. But I think because, to me, pile fabric makes more sense because you're talking about the stuff on top of it. Nap fabric makes it sound like it's time for me to lay down and go sleepy. So I'm gonna go with, they named it what? For nap fabric, because I personally think that's weirder than pile. Again, you're allowed to disagree with me, but this is just mine, and you know, I'm the only one talking to the camera, so I get to have the final say. Okay, and since I just mentioned it, we'll do this one next. Selvage. The selvage of the fabric, which is the woven ends of your fabric. For those of you that like to cheat like I do, it's the pieces that I tend to use as the bottom hem because I can't be bothered. Because that selvage is woven in from the manufacturer, and so it's not gonna fray. So I love using a selvage, especially like on skirt seams or hems. It saves me a step, and any step that can be saved is a 10 out of 10 solution in this room, genre, channel. You knew what I meant. Selvage. One is spelled wildly, and I even have spelled it wrong on many occasions. Because like, save edge, salve, I don't understand. Edge, yeah. Woven edge, finished edge, all of those would have made more sense. Selv edge, I'm gonna go with What in the Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, because it's the weirdest word that I have to say all the freaking time. And now, imagine yourself, if you will. It is Thanksgiving. You are cooking some type of bird in an oven, potentially, and you go to make that bird juicy. You're welcome. And what do you do to that bird? That's right, you baste the bird with a little sucker plunger thingy that I don't remember the name of right now. My child used one as a microphone for years and broke them all the time. Anyway, so you take that and you baste the bird. That's not what sewing means. Please do not bring a squeezy ball thing that does suction with liquid anywhere near your project. It will end poorly for everyone. The basting is actually when you take a usually hand piece of like hand thread. It's usually when you're hand sewing and you're making very wide stitches just to hold your fabric together. Because basting is a loose stitch that holds two pieces of fabric together. But basting is a weird word. I will give you that. I don't know if it's the weirdest word I've ever heard. So I'm gonna go with I guess. Is that too low? Should it be on that tracks as far as like weird vintage word? I think, actually no, yeah, it should. It should be in that tracks. Or does it go into they named it what? No, you know what? I think that does need to go into they named it what, because that is, the more I think about like emery bag, that actually tracks. Mannish cuff tracks, pile fabric, basting is like a step up from there. Okay, so that's where that goes. Now, one of my absolute favorites is a frog. No, not this dude, not this little guy right here. No. Frogs are closures on usually like a jacket or a cape. They can also standardly be found on a chi pao, the Chinese dress with a couple usually along here. They are not the cute little dude that you are hoping to find in the forest and go ee when you see one. Frogs are it's a strange name, y'all. And for that, it just goes straight up into What in the Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. I don't know how we got from the Mandarin Jinghua, apologies for the pronunciation, for frog the animal to pang kao for the closure is truly beyond me. Next up, we are looking at another fabric, which again, I could do, there's so many other weird fabric names, but this one is pongee. Pongee, I believe is how that is said. It is a slubby basic weave fabric that originated from China and is usually made out of silk. And again, this is not our word or like our origination. So for that actually makes sense, because again, we're not here to make fun of other cultures' names. We are just here to make fun of words that legitimately come from English and go, why? Because that's my home language. So I'm allowed to make fun of it. Now, we have one of my favorite moments, the Rickroll. I mean rickrack. Rickrack is a type of trim that is woven in actually like a pinking shears zigzag style. And this is a very vintage trim. It is very prevalent in all types of garments. I wanna say I've started really seeing it popularized in the 30s, 20s. So I'd be interested to see when it actually came from. Let's see if we can find out. Let's just be curious. We're just gonna be curious today, y'all. When was it invented? Yes, please. Oh, it was invented in the mid-19th century. And the name came around in 1880. Well, that is before even I thought of it. That's cool. I didn't know that. So that's kind of cool. It's a weird name. Like, why is zigzag? Why is rickrack? Like, are you like trying to bob and weave to chase away from a gator, which doesn't work? But that's what they're taught in teaching the kids in Florida, which I know because I actually tried to teach my kid that in gym class. Florida's weird. Anyway, so rickrack, I truly think it needs to be in They Named It What? It's not quite the weirdest thing because, again, there are other weird trim names. Because like frog, you would think of a cute little frog in the forest. Those frogs do nothing other than exist and be cute, which is the entirety of their purpose. I will not have any arguments with that. But rickrack, what did it come from? Did it have a thing? Books of designs such as, I'm gonna butcher this, Newfoundland Rickrack Book helped to popularize the craft. Say what now? I want to read that book. No, I'm staying strong with They Named It What? Because it doesn't make sense. And now we come to another fun little trimming, as it were. It's more of a detail than a trim, but scallops. Which, no, it is not this type of scallop. It is indeed a curve that goes along the edge of a bodice or skirt that is a pain in the butt to install, not gonna lie, but looks really cute and looks really vintage. So for scallops, I think, let's see, what is this? I don't actually know what like a scallop proper looks like in the shellfish family. Okay, so now that we're reminded ourselves, that type of curve in the scallop actually makes sense, sort of, for the scallop edge. So for that reason, we're gonna put it in that actually makes sense. And speaking of ways in which to finish a garment, let's go ahead and just address the awkwardly long-sized word in the room, tarlatan. Tarlatan is used for like, in my books, I see it as like belting at the waist. And for older garments, like you would put a layer of tarlatan at the bottom of a garment so that it would stiffen, right? That's where the tarlatan goes. Listen, I've never made a walking skirt. I've watched a ton of Bernadette's videos. I still don't remember what it's used for because I've never personally used it. So, but it is a very funny word. And I truly go with like, they named it what? Because it's an awkwardly long word for something that could be like stiffening or I don't know. There are other words. Thesaurus yourself until you're happy. And now one of my absolute favorite as a vintage seller, the armscye or armscye, depending on how you feel like saying it or spell it. So for me, the armscye is literally the eye in your arm. Because if you look from the side, most garments sort of have to make like an eye shape under your arm so that the garment fits correctly in Western design. And honestly, it's just a funny word. They think it comes from like way back where like the E's got misplaced for a C and then the apostrophe it's gone through the ringer here, friends. But I do have to say, even though it's been around for that long, I'm still gonna go with they named it what? Because I really don't know. This is one place where I'll go, I do not know how and whence that came from. I did read the Wikipedia, it did not make sense. All right, we got two more. So next up is waistcoat. Yes, you heard me correctly, waistcoat. And we will do the search for this one. And it already directs me to waistcoat from the UK, also known as a vest. That's really funny because that's what that is. And yes, it really is printed on some vintage patterns that it said W-E-S-K-I-T. I am unclear. Let's see, does it say where it changed? Because that's a weird way to change waistcoat. I'm not seeing it. And it was printed on American printed patterns. So like this was a word that was used here in America. Yeah, I'm going with what in the Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. I don't know how we got from waistcoat to waistcoat as a vest. I don't know, man. It was a wild journey. Now, for our final one, I want to say very clearly, this in the spelling and the way in which I am using it is not a slur. It is a sewing term. That means to loosely join two pieces of fabric using thread. And that is called faggoting. There is one G in the American spelling, one singular G. I do not know why. In other countries' spellings, there are two G's, because that to us is the slur that I have, heard and seen used, and it's horrible and awful, and no one should ever say that. But the single G is literally talking about this particular style of sewing. No, it doesn't make sense. I will be very clear. It does not make sense. Even before it would have been a slur, like, why is that what you are calling this particular stitch that goes between? And there's all types of kind. There's ribbons, there's crisscross, there's bar. Like, there are so many ways in which you can faggot with one G, two pieces of fabric to make a gap in your fabric. It usually also involves like sewing each side to a piece of paper and then doing your stitches and then ripping the paper away. Wild. Never tried it. Would be interesting. Don't know if I would like it unless it was like with a ribbon or something. I don't trust thread. I would see myself like putting my hand straight through that. So not something that I would personally want to do, but I do know that it is an heirloom technique and that is just a thing. And no, when you say it in the terms of sewing, it is not a slur. I realize the YouTube gods might come down on me for this, but you know what? We're just gonna have to hope that I don't get demonetized. Because I swear I'm talking about sewing right now. Please let me stay monetized, Daddy YouTube. But truly, even with all of that being said, that is the strongest for What in the Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds that I've ever heard of. Because, like, wowzers, that's a choice. But hey, that is the end of our list. And let me know down in the comments, one, if you want to see me do this with like fabric names or garment style names, also some of which can get truly wild. Or if you disagree with any of them, let me know in the comments and we'll just have a little chat about how we differ in our opinion, and that is perfectly valid. So I hope you enjoyed this today, and if you want to get yourself a new NOLA mattress, make sure that you are scanning the QR code here, or clicking the link in my description down below and using my code StephanieCanada to get $50 off of your next mattress. But I hope that y'all are sewing in chaos, and I will see you next week to do exactly that. Because I'm trying to make a dress for Dandy's Easter egg strut right now, and I have until Thursday to figure it out. Okay, bye. I can't reach the camera today. Instead of the top tier, we are going with What in the Lucy and... Oh, damn it. And instead of the top tier, we're gonna go in... What? We'll go with, not go in. What in the Lucy with Sky? What in the Lucy with the Sky? Oh my God! Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. I don't know why that was so hard to say.